Okay, here we go.
All right, I'm ready when you
All right. President Lincoln was approached by a woman after a political speech. If you were my husband, I would poison your tea. Lincoln replied, if you were my wife, I'd gladly drink it.
That was terrible.
Yeah, my delivery wasn't great either.
That was awesome. I got my friend here, the president of our Birmingham City Council. And it's the end of the year. We're right before Thanksgiving. We are right before the end of the calendar year. And how long have you been in the city council president seat? And there is um, there's a review there, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
There's an end of the year review there, if you will. I just want to get you here and get a report to the people. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I would just love to know what your thoughts are from a perspective starting taking the reins of the city council. Where are we now? And then what's on the horizon?
Yeah, so I became council president literally the day before the 2023 Magic City Classic.
That's right.
So the Classic is my anniversary date. Um, and I had, you know, it was sort of somewhat unexpected for me to become council president. But after, that became a reality, um, one of the first things that I wanted to do was to get the council together and get us talking, get us all in the same room and talking about our collective aspirations for the Birmingham City Council. Um, and we had some ambitious goals um, in terms of amplifying our impact, um, amplifying the visibility of what we do in our individual districts and throughout the city. So we have, we're moving in a direction of trying to accomplish those goals. Um, One of the hardest things that I've especially realized now as a council president and being, having the responsibility of leading the council is that it's a difficult task given that city councilors are not, they are not city councilors as their full-time, everyday focus. Almost all of us, are employed elsewhere and have to have additional income to make ends meet. I'm in that situation, and several others are. We won't only have two counselors who are retired, but have had responsibilities, even in retirement, that have demanded a lot of their time. So one of the biggest challenges that I've faced is getting the 9 of us in the same room. Outside of a council meeting, that's been a challenge, and um, trying to do that, in a way that fosters relationship building between the counselors is really a challenge, because all of us are really focused on our roles, and so we tend to gather with intention and talking about city issues. It's sort of like built into our DNA. It's an expectation.
Mm-hmm.
So just getting together and having lunch or having a drink. These are busy folks.
Right.
They got other stuff to do.
Right.
So
multitasking is a part of life.
Right, exactly. And trying to do that with 9 people, who are basically working 2 jobs and have other responsibilities. It's been a real challenge. I think we've made progress, and if watch the council meetings, and this doesn't have anything to do with my leadership, but this is a council that works well together. There are a few people who don't see eye to eye on some issues, but we're not out there on Tuesday morning, insulting one another, or knocking each other down, for the most part. So, things happen. There have been some things that have occurred over the last year that we'd probably rather didn't, but it's not impacting the trajectory of the city, which is the important thing. There's, in terms of, so that's kind of where we've come, trying to get the council together more frequently, to just, even if we are talking about the city, getting people to share their aspirations, what they want to accomplish. It's been challenging. We're inherently also very competitive people, and folks want to kind of stand out from the crowd. They want to be unique, and so there's some element of that too in the council, that we,
gamesmanship is in your DNA.
Yeah, and it's not, I don't think there are any overt rivalries in terms of War Eagle and Roll Tide kind of relationship. So we make it work, and we get on well with the mayor. That's again, that I don't think that has anything to do with me. That's been the case since I've come on to the council in 2017, and we're going to keep it moving forward. Going into next year is a little different, of course, because it's an election year. I expect that it's going to be even more challenging to get the council to come together outside of Tuesday mornings or committee of the whole meetings, because they're going to be out, asking people to vote for them, or at least most of the council will. Um, so
we can count on you running again, right?
yeah, I'm gonna run again.
Right.
I'm gonna run again, but I really am thinking about more so now as council president. I'm thinking about um, what my colleagues need, in terms of information, um, and resources, and you know, advocating for those things. So um, the information piece is particularly important to me right now. You know, most of my colleagues will be running for reelection, so I want them going into this next year feeling confident that they have all the information that they need to respond to constituents' concerns. So there's some preparation that needs to happen, some study sessions, if you will, that need to happen in order to make sure that they're equipped with all of the information that they need to confidently respond to constituents' concerns. So that's something that I see us doing over the next few months. Um, and just to give you an example, I know that public safety is going to be probably you know above and beyond anything else, the one thing that voters will be asking us about.
Man, I mean, you are slapping this out of the park. You're hitting everything I wanted you to say. Please, dig deep on that.
Yeah. So, I want my colleagues, and part of this is just me too, because I realize that I have some deficiencies or some knowledge gaps. Um, I want us all to have a better understanding of how public safety works in Birmingham. Um, we're the legislative branch. We're not the executive branch. So we don't have direct engagement with leadership in the police department. So for me, I go to like the conference that I just went to in Tampa, Florida for National League of Cities. Part of the conference is that they have an exhibition hall with all of these vendors for various services that they offer to municipalities across the country. And a lot of those vendors work in public safety. Technology is a big thing. And so when I approach, the Axon booth at these expos, I'm asking them, hey, are you guys working with the city of Birmingham? And, that's kind of where I am. That may not be the best example because I know from looking at the contracts on the council agendas that we do work with that particular company. But they have a suite of services available that I'm not sure at this moment that our police department is utilizing. Some of these things would make a police officer's job easier. And so, and that's something that I'm really interested in. Um, you know, Solving for public safety in Birmingham isn't just about having more law enforcement officer presence. It's, in my mind, about making it easier for them to perform that job. And so there are technologies out there that can assist with that. Anytime a law enforcement officer has to um, make an arrest or otherwise, take some action, that usually ends up in some sort of report. So they spend quite a bit of time, making reports. Well, Axon actually has a technology that um, on the cameras that all the police officers wear, it also records audio. And they have a new technology that can take the audio from those recordings and automatically translate it and fill out the reports. So,
and assign it to the right person. I saw that on TikTok.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, um, I know being a police officer, especially in a city like Birmingham, is got to be a tough job, and I know it's a tough job because I hear those guys talking about, when they come on the shift, it's nonstop, from until they clock out, and I want them to have all the tools that are available that can make their job easier.
I was talking to Rod Malden just yesterday. And to your point, it takes everybody working at different points. While he's working about putting boots on the ground, you want to make the life of those who are already on the ground more efficient.
That's right.
And more productive, safer, the whole 9 yards.
Right, right. So, I was really happy that the mayor came to us with the recent $15.8 million package for recruitment and retention of police officers. That's something that I personally have been asking him for quite some time. So, when he brought it to us, I had been ready, for that. So I think that was a huge step forward for us. Um, but again, everything that we can put in the toolbox for police officers to help make them, more effective and their job easier to perform, let's consider it. And I say that even from this perspective of the legislative branch of government. If there's something in the code that the council needs to be looking at to make it easier um, for police officers to be effective on a certain issues, let's say like noise complaints or something like
Right.
that, then let's do that. Again, anything that we can do to help them. One of my philosophies in terms of thinking about getting stuff done, a mantra that I tell myself is that if you make it easy, it'll get done. If the more complicated a task you give to someone, um, the longer it's going to take them to do it, and the more likely they are not to complete it. So, um, I'm a big believer in doing everything you can to make a task as simple as possible to execute.
When you look at the future of Birmingham, is it bright? Is it dim? Are we on track? Do we have some work to do? What does the future hold from your eyes, from your perspective?
We definitely have some work to do. Um, I would say, you know, so I moved to Birmingham in the year 2000. Um, and for the first 10 years that I lived here, um, I think the general ethos of the community was sort of down on itself. And there was not, a general consensus that we could do big things. Um, and then with Mayor Langford coming into office, and him really kind of taking the bull by the horns and just unrelentingly pushing the city forward. That was the inflection point. And Railroad Park came along. There was a change in leadership, but Bell kind of picked up where Langford left off, and the Barons came back, and we built the baseball stadium, and we've been trying in many ways, I think, to continue building off of that momentum. The convention center, has gotten a total revamp, and that has been a good investment. Insert a note here that I was one of the 3 people who didn't support the $90 million for the football stadium, but and that had a lot to do with what my constituents were saying. But I think in retrospect, if I had to do it over again, um, you know, hindsight's 2020. I'd probably do something different. So, Birmingham has a lot of legacy issues that perhaps some cities that you look around, in Jefferson County or elsewhere in Alabama or elsewhere in the country, they don't have those, legacy issues to the same degree that we have here. Having a history of being, the most segregated city in America is still with us. Having,
physically and psychologically.
Right, absolutely. Having a history where, the white population and black population were intentionally pitted against one another is still with us. And having a history where, we saw an explosion in the development of the highway system, and people's incomes, went up dramatically, and they all bought cars, and then they all moved out to the suburbs. That legacy is still with us. Having, the history of having an economy that was largely dependent on the steel industry, and then that going away, that legacy is still with us. So, that's something that I think is going to take generations to overcome. I'll just say it plainly. Having a population where a third of the population lives below the poverty line, that's a big challenge, and it impacts our progress. So I was literally having a conversation with an individual earlier today where we were talking about the school system, and he was talking about investing in the school system, and he mentioned raising the property taxes to support the school system. And I told him, like, look, we cannot do that. The state legislature has what's referred to as the lid bill that prohibits us from doing anything with our property tax over above what it is right now. So, and there's that. There's the fact that uh, a lot of the kids that enter into our public schools are coming into those public schools significantly behind their peers in terms of vocabulary and comprehension. Significantly behind compared to their peers in the suburbs. That's a huge challenge. So overcoming those things, takes, unfortunately, it takes a long time. I want to say it takes generations, and I don't want to scare folks, but I really think that you've got to have that sort of long-term view. And one of the things that we're looking towards to try and address that, and I think there's lots of folks in the community that realize that challenge in particular, and recognizing the challenge that as the school system goes, so does Birmingham.
Absolutely.
They realize that challenge, and so there's been a lot of progress made in terms of getting kids ready before they enter the school system. We now think of pre-K as part of school. Well, pre-K wasn't a thing when I was a kid or you were a kid.
Well, it was for me, but that's a long story.
But that's statewide. Is the state of Alabama has like literally, I think it's the top ranked pre-K program in the United States. So we've had that come along, and Mayor Woodfin also supports getting kids into programs like that as early as possible. There's a nonprofit organization here in town, and I'm drawing a blank on the name, but they actually use a device.
Something talks.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And they've done a rebrand recently, so that's the old name.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, they use a device that a social worker can help the parent understand that they need to be intentional about speaking to their child even when they're an infant. Yeah. So the child actually wears a device that can detect, when an adult is actually speaking to the child, and it can discriminate between, a television, let's say, and actual conversation. Right. And the goal is to, build those habits in the parents or the caregivers, such that those kids' vocabulary, when they enter pre-K or kindergarten, they have been exposed to a comparable vocabulary like their peers that have better circumstances, let's say.
Right.
So,
and we have to think generationally like that. Like it took a long time to get into this predicament,
right?
And it's going to take a long time to get out of it.
That's right. So those things make me hopeful that Birmingham's moving in the right direction. I'll tell you another thing that makes me hopeful is that there are people in the business community that realize that, having these huge economic disparities in our community holds our community back. Mm-hmm. So I've seen more intentionality in the last few years around making sure that people have access to opportunities, access to the business acumen and the resources that they need to um, grow generational wealth. And so that's something, relatively new by my observation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, and it's great, because I absolutely think that, you know, you can't have, um, a few wealthy people and a whole bunch of folks who are struggling and a few people in the middle. That sort of setup, I think, doesn't work long term. It holds everybody, even the wealthy folks, it holds them back too. So I think, if we can get more people, let's, you know, don't got no problem with wealthy people being wealthy, but as long as we have a huge population that are struggling, yeah, we got to move those people up so that we can all grow together. Um, I think that's really important, and I see a realization in our community that's what needs to happen.
When you um, when you go out to your constituents, when you talk to the citizens on Tuesdays, are you guys getting it right? Do you think that you're going in the direction that the citizens want you to go in?
That's a tough question.
That priorities question,
Yeah,
are you balancing the priorities well?
I think we're trying. You know, one of the things that I want folks to remember as they're listening to this is that, you know, this past 4 years, we had a challenge unlike, any that the this country has experienced, and the world has experienced in 100 years. Um, so uh, any way you spell it, COVID-19 set us back. Um, we're in terms of we see it in our law enforcement right now. A lot of that had to do with folks deciding, the heck with this, I'm eligible for retirement, I'm getting out of here. That happened in a lot of different sectors, and had an impact on the city. um, and you know so the other thing, that I'm thinking about is that it had an impact on our delivery of services. So people, expect us to do three things as municipal government: provide law enforcement, provide fire and rescue, and provide public works in the form of picking up the trash and keeping the streets cleaned and paved and all of that stuff. And in all three of those areas, COVID-19 really set us back, and we're trying. We're still in the rebuild mode. I would say fire and rescue has been the most successful in terms of rebuilding their force back. They're in pretty good shape. They got a lot of equipment needs though, and a fire truck nowadays costs $1 million. Uh, yeah, so um, that's huge. Um, we've already talked about the public safety issue. On the public works side, particularly the waste collection, we are trying to be more efficient. So for years and years and years, the way we did trash collection was 3 guys on a truck twice a week. And meanwhile, every everywhere else, even nearby, was 1 guy on a truck once a week. And oh, by the way, you're going to pay for it too each month. So, uh, you know, residents of the city of Birmingham, really liked that, twice a week service. And even though it's more efficient, they see that once a week service as a decrease in services. I've had some constituents tell me that, that even though it may be more efficient, I used to get my trash picked up twice a week, and now it's only once a week. So, and it's
I hear you, but
right, exactly, yeah. So, I don't know how to crack that nut. The I think people expect us as elected leadership to try and make government function efficiently wherever we can, and that was definitely something that there was lots of great examples where that showed that that was a good move, and especially post COVID, we need to move some employees around and get them upskilled to do something else in a city role. So there's that challenge. So yes, I think the leadership has moved in the right direction. One thing I should mention is that a big challenge that we have dealt with over at least the last 7 years that I've been here is when I got here, our retirement system for our employees was dramatically underfunded, like to the tune of $300+ million. And that's was a hugely important problem to solve. So just skipping to the end, our pension is still underfunded, but we're on track to get it fully funded. Where we were before, there was no horizon. We weren't gonna get it funded. So we're in a different position. We've sort of dealt with that issue now. Even gotten the state legislature's support to make that obligatory for the city in terms of our contribution to our employees' pension plan. That's really important. If I'm an employee and I'm paying into that retirement system, I sure as hell want it to be there for me, whenever I decide to retire. If that's not going to be the case, then, maybe I need to look for work somewhere else. So that was a big thing for us to solve for. And I think ultimately it's going to have a lot of benefits, especially on the financial side for us, because our credit rating agencies also look at those obligations, and we weren't meeting them, and we were on track to be downgraded, and we're able to avert that. So that's an accomplishment. So there are still a lot of big challenges. Again, I think the one that's sort of um, right at the top of the pinnacle is public safety. And I think there's a real, commitment amongst elected leadership to um, take big strides forward in that regard. Um, so we're moving in the right direction.
Any closing notes? You gotta say something to Christina.
Yeah, on a personal level, that's something that has a personal challenge that my family faced this past 4 years, in that my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer and had to have a mastectomy and try and had a long and extended recovery from that, and a lot of various health effects. So but thankfully she's the doctors caught it early, and she's doing great. Um, she's now working with Jones Valley Teaching Farm and has what she calls her dream job.
Yeah, she's so excited.
Yeah. She loves teaching kids at Glen Iris Elementary about food and where their food comes from, and how to prepare it, and introducing them to new things that they may have never experienced before. Um, so she's having a great time, and she's a tremendous support to me too.
Send her my love.
Will do.